Right, hello guys. So, in today's video, I have a Warlock build for you that goes back to the classic roots of old Solar Warlock builds that still retains the power and presence to compete with even the most modern Prismatic Warlock builds. The gameplay you'll be seeing is a mix between the brand new Liminality Grandmaster Nightfall, Expert and Master Lost sectors, as well as general play to showcase the full spectrum of what this build is capable of. So, welcome to what I'm calling the Red Starfire Solar Warlock build. First things first, what can you expect to receive from this build? Because this isn't a Prismatic build, you can very much lean into the tried and true synergies from the Solar 3.0 kit, which by the way are still very potent despite all of the cool stuff you can do with Prismatic. For starters, this build is incredibly safe in the sense that we have so many ways of healing ourselves and our teammates that it becomes very hard to die. Once everything is up and running, we're going to have permanently refreshable restoration ×2, refreshable radiant, endless cure procs, a total 46.3% weapon damage buff at all times, as well as a staggering 650% additional grenade regeneration rate. That's all well and good as far as character buffs go, but it doesn't stop there. Our melee and grenade abilities both deal a ton of damage in a rather large radius that also causes solar ignitions 24/7. Furthermore, this build only becomes stronger in team-based content due to the unique synergies only present on the Solar subclass. Not to mention, our super ability lets us almost fully tank the damage on even the hardest endgame content. So let's start with our exotic armor of choice, Starfire Protocol. This exotic chest piece used to be the most popular Warlock exotic for both DPS and general play before it was sadly nerfed with the release of Season of the Deep back in Lightfall, and I'm sure after that point many players, self included, cast it away to the depths of their vaults. But in truth, if you build around it properly, it's still a very powerful exotic even today, especially this season with the offerings of artifact perks we have. I even used this chest piece for a good portion of my contest clear of Salvation's Edge. So real quick, let's get a refresher of the perks. The exotic perk Fusion Harness reads, Fusion grenades have an additional charge and recharge from empowered weapon damage, with empowered weapon final blows granting more energy. Defeating targets with fusion grenades grants rift energy. So right off the bat, having 2 fusion grenades, especially if you're running them with Touch of Flame, is very good. These grenades hit seriously hard. In fact, the 2 of them are almost enough to completely kill Carl. The energy returned from weapon damage is what took a hit with the nerf, but you still get 20% grenade energy back per empowered weapon kill. And on top of that, it's not mentioned in the perk description, but you also get a further passive 20% regen boost to your fusion grenades for simply having this exotic equipped. Finally, getting at least 1 kill with your fusion grenade will instantly refund your class ability. So already we have a pretty strong baseline, but how can we maximize our effectiveness? Well, let's start by delving into our subclass configuration. Our super of choice is, you guessed it, Song of Flame. This brand new super has quickly become one of the best Warlock supers in the game, and it's not even close. Not even Well of Radiance trumps it in a fair number of scenarios, since it simply does Well's job better. I could ramble on about Song of Flame for hours, but just know that it gives you the following benefits once cast. Number 1, as with most roaming supers, for the duration of the cast, you're given a 90% damage resist, which is enough to tank most if not all damage in even the highest levels of endgame content like GMs for example. Number 2, for the duration of the cast you are permanently radiant, and number 3, your kinetic and solar weapons are granted scorching rounds that burn enemies with solar scorch upon scoring hits. This is an excellent super to expend if you want to quickly dispatch a new wave of adds, or also as a panic button if you're taking too much damage. Empowering Rift will be our class ability of choice since it's the only one that synergizes with Starfire Protocol. You can choose either Incinerator Snap or Celestial Fire for your melee ability, but me personally, I prefer the Snap since it feels more consistent at proccing ignitions. Finally, we are of course taking Fusion Grenades since that's the entire focus of this build. As far as aspects are concerned, in order to get the most out of our Fusion Grenades, Touch of Flame is a no-brainer choice since it literally doubles the damage and potential AoE value. Our second aspect is Helion, the newly added Solar Soul that procs on Rift cast, and since we're going to be casting our Rift pretty often, we will have this up most of the time. And also, it's yet another source of Scorch that can lead to even more ignitions. With Starfire and Helion working together, you should always have another Rift back by the time your previous one ended. Moving on to the fragments, the first one is going to be Ember of Torches for making ourselves and any nearby allies radiant on powered melee hits, which will also synergize super nicely with our next fragment and quite possibly the most important, Ember of Benevolence. This makes it so whenever we apply either Radiant, Cure or Restoration to our allies, it grants us 400% or 5 times additional regeneration rate for all 3 of our abilities for 6 seconds. And Ember of Torches is going to be very good for this, but it's by no means the only way. Next we have Ember of Ashes to make it so all instances of Scorch apply 50% more Scorch, which only helps to improve the frequency at which we trigger ignitions. Plus it also makes our snap melee consistently ignite in 1 hit. Finally, our 4th fragment will be Ember of Empyrean, which will allow us to extend the duration of any restoration or radiant effects we apply to ourselves as long as we are getting kills with solar weapons or abilities. That's it for our abilities, let's move on to the weapons. By far the most important weapon for this setup is going to be Red Death Reformed with its Catalyst. The Catalyst is very important for this build for quite a few reasons. So first, what does it actually do? Well, to save you the long-winded description, basically getting 2 kills charges the gun, which is visible in the bottom left above your super, and then the next kill after that spawns a healing remnant that the wielder instantly collects, granting cure ×2 and restoration ×2, because of course it does. This orb is also able to be collected by teammates and also provides them with identical effects. And by the way, restoration ×2 is the exact same amount of healing that Well of Radiance provides. The orb looks visually identical to the remnant spawned by the healing grenade and also lasts for 10 seconds on the ground. So now that we know what it does, why is this important? Well, as I'm sure you've guessed already, this is literally the easiest possible way to trigger Ember of Benevolence 24/7. Not only are you granting your allies restoration and cure every 3 kills, at base Red Death also has pseudo heal clip where reloading after a kill cures any nearby allies, yet another source of benevolent synergy. This alone is enough to skyrocket the regeneration rate of all of our abilities, including of course our fusion grenades. Besides that, Red Death is also just a very solid primary weapon, and I have a whole video on that if you want to know more, but for the purposes of this video, just look at it as a supercharger for all of our abilities. Stats wise, you'll want to prioritize resilience, then discipline, then recovery. It's best to have both resilience and discipline at 100 and then pour any remaining stats into recovery. Now let's move on to armor mods. First of all, for the helmet, we're taking double Ashes to Assets for the extra super energy gain from grenade kills, as well as Solar Siphon so that Red Death can make orbs on double kills. For our gauntlets, we use Firepower to make an orb whenever we get a grenade kill, Impact Induction to give us 12% of our grenade back every time we deal melee damage, and Fastball to increase the throw distance of our fusion grenades. Trust me here, it feels really nice to be able to throw your grenades super far distances, especially when having to deal with pesky sniper units. Chest piece, like most builds, is just spec'd into general resist mods, but for our boots, I'm actually going with double Solar Surge and a single Recuperation. Now, the reason for this is because we won't really be benefiting hugely from mods like Innovation or Absolution, because with Ember of Benevolence, our regen is so fast anyway, they're not really needed. Hence why I've opted to improve the damage of Red Death instead. Double Solar Surge will amount to an extra 17% weapon damage, which when stacked with Radiant results in a total 46.3% weapon damage bonus at all times. Finally, for the class item, we have Time Dilation to improve the length of our surges, Bomber to grant 12% grenade energy on Riftcast, which we will be doing a lot of, and Powerful Attraction to collect the orbs we create when casting our Rift. Lastly, let's touch on our choice of Artifact Perks, since it's here that we're able to fully complete the build. First of all, we're taking Anti-Barrier Pulse Rifle so that Red Death can deal with barrier champions and is always overcharged whenever that modifier is active, which is a 25% damage boost, by the way. Next in column 3, we have Elemental Siphon, which will allow us to spawn the occasional Fire Sprite upon scoring rapid kills with Red Death, which when collected will grant a further 12.5% grenade energy. For column 4, we're taking Counter Energy for that extra 25% energy to our least charged ability after stunning a champion, which is going to be nice for any Grandmaster or champion adjacent content. Again, from column 4, we also have Radiant Orbs and Solar Fulmination to grant a 25% damage boost on orb pickup and increase the size and damage of our solar ignitions. Lastly, in column 5, I've picked Prismatic Transfer and Shield Crush. Prismatic Transfer is simply to provide any nearby allies a small 20% damage boost for 10 seconds after casting your Song of Flame, provided they aren't also running a Solar Super. This is kind of to build into the support aspect of the build just a little more. The reasoning for this is that no other mod really fits here. You could go for Argent Blade for boss damage, I suppose, so it's really up to you. Shield Crush, however, is non-negotiable because the second part of it reads, while you are amplified or radiant, your grenade recharges faster and deals increased damage. And the exact amount for both the damage and regen rate is 25%. And since we're going to be radiant almost all the time, this perk is a really nice cherry on top. So if I list out all of our grenade regen sources, we have 20% passively from Starfire, 25% from Shield Crush, and 400% from Ember of Benevolence, which in total comes to an additional 650% grenade regeneration rate. And if you ask me, that's not too bad. This also isn't accounting for the numerous other ways we get our grenade energy back, such as Fire Sprites, Impact Induction, Empowered Kills and Damage, the list goes on. So now that you're fully clued up on the inner workings of the build, how does it work in practice? Well, for starters, your aim should be to place an Empowering Rift as soon as an engagement begins. That way you can proc your Helion and cause any subsequent grenade kills to fully recharge it. After that, continue casting new rifts, throwing more grenades to make Shax proud, as well as getting as many kills as you can with Red Death in between, so you create healing remnants for your allies to keep the Ember of Benevolence chain rolling. Make sure those kills are within Empowering Rifts so that your grenades come back even faster, and altogether you have a build that kills it in any level of content you bring it into. Another final note is that if the content you're playing isn't too intensive, you can also swap Red Death for the healing auto no hesitation, giving resto to your allies that way instead of via Red Death, but it's totally up to you. As always, there will be a dim link to this build in the description if you want to copy it hassle-free. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the showcase and feel like giving the build a try. That's all for today. I'll see you in the next one. If you made it this far, thank you so much. Your support means the world. And if if you're really into the content I create, consider becoming a member of the channel, which not only lets you support me in the best way possible, it also nets you a whole host of awesome perks along with it. A massive shout out to these members up on screen, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now, dear viewer.